Good morning, students. Last class we saw the parts and types of the flowers. Today we will study about pollination and fertilization. We already know the male part androecium, which has stamen, consists of anther, which has the pollen grains, which is carried away by the pollinators to the female part, gynoecium, is called a pollination. I will repeat. The transfer of pollen grains from the anther to the stigma is called a pollination. Now, who are these pollinators? The pollinators are wind, water, insects, birds. These agents are helping in pollination. For example, in paddy and tomato, they need the help of insects to create vibration in the flower so that they will effectively undergo pollination. Next, we will see about the types of pollination. First one is the self-pollination. Second one is the cross-pollination. The self-pollination. Pollen grains are transferred from the anther to the stigma of the same flower or to another flower of the same plant. See here this anther is from the anther, the pollen grains are transferred to the stigma of the same flower or another flower of the same plant. This is self-pollination. In cross-pollination, the pollen grains are transferred from the anther to the one flower to the stigma of another flower of the same kind or different plant. Here two different plants are here. So the pollen grains are transferred from the anther of the one plant, one flower, to the stigma of another flower of the same kind or different plant of the same species is the cross-pollination. In the self-pollination, the plants need not to produce more pollen grain. For here, the plant need to produce more pollen grains to increase the chance of pollination. Here, in this self-pollination, it does not produce changes in the characteristic of a new plant. In cross-pollination, the variations in characteristics of a new plant. Here, because they are having two different plant, two different flowers, so the changes will be there in the characteristics of a new plant. Next, fertilization. Fertilization, the fusion of male gamete and female gamete. The male gamete fuses with the female gamete to form a zygote. This process is called fertilization. To study more about the fertilization, let's see the life cycle of a plant. Through pollination, the pollen grains reaches stigma. The substance produced on the stigma causes pollen grains to germinate. During this germination, a tube develops from the pollen grain that carry the male gamete to the female gamete inside the ovary through the style. The male gamete fuses with the female gamete to form a zygote. The fertilized egg is called a zygote. This process is known as fertilization. After this fertilization, the ovary, the lower most swollen part of pistil, develop into fleshy fruit. The ovule present inside the ovary gets transmitted into a seed. From the seed, the plant produced. From the plant, the leaves and flowers are produced. From the flowers, the reproductive organs are there. From the anther, they produce pollen grain. The life cycle is completed. Next topic is asexual reproduction. What is asexual reproduction? Already we studied the production of new plants without the involvement of pollination and fertilization is known as asexual reproduction. Let us know the types of reproduction. There are 4 types of asexual reproduction. First one is the vegetative propagation. Number 2, budding. Third one, fragmentation. Fourth one, spore formation. Now, what is vegetative propagation? The vegetative parts of the plant such as root, stem and leaves can help to propagate the plant. Example, potato. The shoot arises from the eyes of the potato. Sugarcane, yam also like that. In a leaf, example bryophyllum, from the leaf margin, new plant will arise. Second one, budding. The word bud means small outgrowth. The process of budding, a small bud grows on the parent organism, and when the time comes, it detaches itself from the parent and then form a new organism. Example, yeast. Third one is the fragmentation. Example, Spirogyra. Spirogyra is a filamentous algae. When it is matures, the filament divide into pieces. Each fragment or the piece of filament will grow into a new filament or an individual. This process is known as fragmentation. Next one, spore formation. Example, algae, fungi, moss and ferns. These produce spores. Under unfavorable condition. What is unfavorable condition? The scarcity of water, high temperature, nutrition deficiency in soil. These are unfavorable conditions. During these conditions, the non-flowering plants, that is algae, fungi, will germinate into a new plant. Is known as spore formation. These are the 4 types of asexual reproduction. Today's homework is explain the types of asexual reproduction.